Engine Noise Podcast is brought to you by oneauto.com. Quality auto parts that ship quickly and come with thousands of free online videos that walk you through your installs.
Didn't that company start with just two guys just like us that like to work on cars?
Yep, it actually did. oneauto.com. Quality auto parts, free shipping, thousands of free how-to videos created by two car guys just like us. Hey, welcome to the Engine Noise Podcast for do-it-yourselfers like me who don't mind getting their hands dirty. I'm your car, truck, bike, or anything with an engine expert, Jeremy Nutt.
And I'm Matt, the one who puts the party in the party mix.
Ooh, I like party mix. Pretzels are my favorite.
Ugh, I hate the pretzels.
Really?
Yeah, they don't belong in there.
That's really weird, Matt.
Jeremy, I got a question for you.
I like questions.
It's more of a demand.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I need you to tell me all about Hemis. Give me a good summary of Hemi engines.
Okay. That's an interesting one.
You think you can handle that?
I'm going to give it a shot.
Okay.
I'm going to preface this by saying I am not a Hemi expert, but I do know a thing or two about engines. Hemis are actually a design of a cylinder head, and the cylinder head sits on top of the pistons.
Correct.
So
I know that.
Yeah. So in the 1950s, I'll give you a little history as well. In the 1950s, Chrysler, Plymouth, DeSoto, they started putting Hemi engines into cars. And they became a big deal because they would make a lot of horsepower. So then what all the hot rodders started doing was pulling these engines out and putting them in smaller cars. And then they'd have a little Model A convertible with a Hemi engine in it. And you'd have like 331 cubic inches of 300 horsepower or something, which was like astronomically high for
that time.
And those little cars. Yeah, because the cars that they were putting these engines in were so much smaller than the cars that they were taking them out of. It's like taking a Cadillac engine out and putting it in a Fiesta. So the actual design of the Hemi, though, is they call it a Hemi because it's a hemispherical head. Basically, at the top of the piston comes all the way to the top of the cylinder, and there's like half of a circle. It's like a dome. I'm demonstrating with my hands right now, so Matt can see it, but nobody else can.
No, it's a perfect description.
So you're going to have to imagine this. Take your cereal bowl in the morning.
Right.
Flip it over.
Yeah.
Put that on top of a piston.
Okay.
And you have a Hemi head.
Perfect.
It's hemispherical head. The beauty of this, it burns the fuel very efficiently. The Hemi head has a spark plug right in the top center of it.
Yeah.
And then it has an intake valve on the top and an exhaust valve at the bottom. So the intake air and fuel come in the top of the head, spark plug ignites it, piston goes down, and then it goes out the bottom. And it's just a super efficient design because the burn of the fuel goes down and pushes on the piston evenly all the way around because it's a hemispherical head, and the burn starts at the center at the spark plug. So it burns perfectly evenly around the whole piston, pushing it down. And the air comes in one side and goes out the other. So the air doesn't have to change directions as it's coming in and out of the engine. That makes it super efficient and super good at making horsepower.
So in comparison, a regular piston will have a flat head?
No. A lot of cylinder heads are designed with the valves next to each other instead of on top of each other. So on a Hemi, the valves, there's one on the top by the intake manifold and one at the bottom by the exhaust manifold. And a normal, like, small block Chevy engine has the valves next to each other, and then it has the spark plug sort of in between and below a little bit, both valves. In one of those engines, the intake air comes in one side of the cylinder head, and then it has to change directions and go out the exhaust in a different direction. So that makes it
That doesn't sound as efficient.
No, it's not as efficient because the air has to move. It basically has to do more work. The engine has to do more work to pull the intake air in and push the exhaust out, whereas a Hemi, the air just flows through very nicely and it burns really evenly. Like a small block Chevy, since the spark plug is not dead in the center of the cylinder head, the flame front of the combustion in the engine, it starts on one side of the piston and it moves to the other side. Although it all happens within milliseconds, the fire inside your cylinder, it starts on one side and it moves to the other. So you're actually pushing the piston harder on one side than you are on the other. And then when it gets to the bottom of the bore, you're pushing it harder on the opposite side than you are on the beginning side. So you're not pushing the piston evenly down the bore, and it makes it less efficient.
It sounds really, really disturbing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be in an engine.
No.
It sounds scary, Jeremy.
There's actually a really cool video of people who have put cameras in cylinder heads. They've drilled holes and put like super magic cameras in there that can handle heat and fire and stuff.
Whoa.
And you can see the fire happen and pistons and valves and valves opening and closing. And you see the wet air and fuel like coming in the cylinder and like burning and then spitting out the exhaust. It's amazing. Wow. Yeah, there's actually a YouTube guy who made a cylinder head out of plexiglass too.
Yeah, I have seen that.
That is really cool too.
And then he puts different types of fuels in it.
Yeah, and he puts different fuels in it, and he burns like alcohol and propane and regular gasoline and all kinds of stuff. And you can see the different colors that the flames make, and yeah, it's super cool. So to wrap up, that's what a Hemi head is. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. Still pretty confused, but that's cool.
That's all right.
So people love taking these engines and putting them into like tiny vehicles, like taking it out of a big truck, like a big 2500 and throwing it in like a Ford Focus.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about power and weight ratios. So the more horsepower you have in a smaller or lighter vehicle, the faster you're going to go. That's sort of what it's all about. So that's why Corvettes are made out of carbon fiber now. Well, some of them are. If you spend all the money, you can get carbon fiber body panels on your Corvette and a supercharged 638 horsepower engine or something like that. Even new Mustangs, I mean, they look big and fat, and they're big and fat compared to like a 1960s Mustang, but still they're intended to go fast and be nimble and light because that's their whole purpose. People want them because they're fast and they're fun. So the key to having a fast and fun car is have a light car with a big engine.
You know, Jeremy, when I first heard of our sponsor, 1A Auto, I thought they strictly made install videos, and that was it.
That's what I think probably a lot of people on YouTube assume. But 1A Auto actually sells, I would say, hundreds of thousands of parts. A pretty big business that has hundreds of employees that do everything from sourcing great products. They have a quality department to make sure that the products are the highest quality possible. They have obviously free shipping, which is fantastic. Yep. There's multiple warehouses so that they can get the parts to you quickly. It's not just videos.
Great parts, free shipping, fast shipping, great customer service, and you get the videos as a bonus.
I think that sums it up pretty well, Matt.
1AAuto.com. Not just awesome install videos, but quality auto parts and a team of automotive experts that are here to help. Jeremy, what is going on with your arm?
Yeah, I got a little...
bleeding all over the place here, are you?
This is a do-it-yourself auto repair injury that I have for you today.
Love it.
I'm under my Le Mans. I'm starting to work on the exhaust system, and there's an exhaust hanger. It is bolted to the frame, but the bolt is loose, and it's rusted in place. My options were fight with it for a long time or just cut it off.
Yeah.
And I was like, why would I fight with it if I can just cut it off?
Easy peasy.
So I got my abrasive cutoff wheel, and I'm under the car. I have long sleeves on. Keep that in mind.
Okay.
And I'm cutting the bolt, and the thing is red hot at this point. Because when you're cutting a bolt, the head of the bolt will turn red.
Yeah.
Turns red, comes off, the bracket falls down, the head of the bolt goes down my sleeve.
Oh boy.
And it just bounces down my arm, and it just burns my arm in like 3 different spots. And I'm under the car, and there's not a ton of room under a car.
Yeah.
So I'm flailing around because I'm like, I feel like I'm on fire. And this red hot thing is in my sleeve, sizzling my arm. At some point, I finally like pulled it away enough so that I only did this amount of damage, which you can see is it's a pretty good little...
I can see. We'll have to get a picture of that.
In the audio world, it's tough to describe it, but it's not a fun injury. I got to a point where I was holding it away from my skin at least, and then I rolled it out of my sleeve. And that is a dumb thing to do if you're ever under a car with something hot.
Yeah.
So, and the best part is I have Miller welding sleeves, which are for this sort of thing. If you're welding, you can put these sleeves on.
And you didn't use them?
No.
We'll take a picture of it right now.
Yeah. It's already healing. It actually looks better than it did, obviously, on the first day. Should I flex my muscles right now?
Yeah. No,
I don't really have muscles. I'm kind of a skinny dweeb.
We'll post that picture on our social media.
Have you had any good injuries recently?
Well, I haven't been working on vehicles enough, but every time I work on a vehicle, I get hurt. It doesn't matter. Most of the time it comes from carelessness.
Yeah.
And a little bit of not knowing what you're doing with me. No matter what, whenever I'm loosening a bolt, and you're pushing it to that point,
Yeah.
and you know something's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm like cringing right
Yeah.
now just thinking about it.
Yep, and then bye, Knuckles.
Here's a fun fact about me again.
Ooh.
I actually have a little piece of metal in my hand from my Chevy Impala.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, you can see it under the skin if you move my hand just right.
It's really gross looking.
Yeah, my dad actually has a big enough piece of metal under his skin from a similar thing that you can stick a magnet to it. Yeah, it is awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, he was using a punch, like a chisel or a punch,
Yeah.
but a big fat one. And I want to say he was working on like pushing a bearing through something, just swinging a giant hammer, and a piece of the chisel or the punch broke off and it went under the back of his skin. And I think like maybe initially he didn't realize that there was metal under there because it was just like a injury and it was like gross looking.
Yeah.
But then, time passes and pretty soon you actually have a piece of metal that he can stick a magnet to.
And it's still in there.
Still there. It's been there for like 30 years or something.
That's
insane.
amazing.
Yeah, I mean, mine is not
like-
nearly that cool, but I have
T1000.
Yeah, exactly. He's almost the Terminator
Yeah.
at this point. Yeah. He's probably going to listen to this and be like, Jeremy has no idea what he's talking about. But I swear it's a true story.
Yeah,
I swear.
it's just something he did to you
Yeah,
when
maybe-
you were a kid, and like, oh, look at this. It was a
I
trick.
know. Yeah. It was probably, he probably like glued a magnet to
Yeah.
his hand and he's like, watch this, Jeremy. And I was probably like a 5-year-old stupid kid that was just like, yeah, that's cool, Dad.
My dad's metal.
Maybe at some point we can have him on the show and we'll do the circus tricks.
That would be great.
Yeah, we'll bring a magnet and we'll see what happens. So let's hear more about yours, Matt.
Oh, like I said, I don't do a lot of car repairs. So let's take an example from my younger years, and this is why I say that it comes with lack of experience. Gutting a house, and there's a metal electrical box attached to a stud, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, how do I get this thing off of here?
Right.
And another guy goes, just smash it. So I took a hammer and I smashed it, and it came off the stud and followed the wire like Tarzan and came back and hit me directly in the forehead.
No.
And left two like
The spike
big
marks?
dents in my forehead.
Oh, man, that's brutal.
That was great.
Wow.
Yeah, went into the store, on the way home.
Yeah.
Rough day at the office? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just covered in dust and I got two huge dents in my forehead.
That is awesome.
Yeah. So it's, it's carelessness.
Yeah,
sometimes.
definitely. Another fun story that happened to me in my youth, when I'm going to say I was probably 16, I had gotten a welder around this time. So I'm welding floors into my Chevy Impala, and one of the things that my dad instilled in me is anytime you're welding, have something to put out the fire that you cause from the welder.
That's a very smart idea.
Yeah, that's good advice for anybody. So if you're welding something, have a
Gasoline.
not
or-
gasoline.
What?
No, that's not how that works.
Oh.
A bucket of water, maybe a spray thing of water, a fire extinguisher, a water hose, something to put out the fire.
Yeah, it's a good tip.
So back to the story. I'm welding the floors in my car. And, back then I'm wearing some sweet Genco jeans.
Of course.
Because why wouldn't I be? And they're an old pair because I wouldn't work on my car with like a nice pair of Gencos,
And they
right?
Yeah. Most of them were all nice.
Exactly. And Genco jeans, they were always too long and they were bunched up at the bottom and you'd wear out the back of them and they'd be all like frayed.
Yeah.
I think you can see where this is going. So
I think so, yeah.
I'm welding the floors in my Gencos and they're all frayed. And sure enough, my pants are on fire. And the thing is, like, it happened so fast that I didn't even realize I was on fire because when you're welding, you have this black mask on. You can't see anything around you. So I'm just sitting there welding and I'm like, man, it smells kind of weird. But, I'm welding an old floor pan. There's probably undercoating on the bottom.
So many smells.
Exactly. Pretty soon I feel the heat on my leg and my leg's on fire. So I jump out of the car and luckily, because my dad told me 100 times, be prepared to put yourself out if you're on fire. And I had a 5-gallon bucket of water next to me, which I stuck my foot in and put out the fire.
Good move. If you didn't have that, you would have had to breakdance the fire
No,
out.
and that might be a fun little story that my parents never heard because it's one of those things that they would have never let me weld again if they knew I was on fire in the driveway.
Yeah, probably not.
So, yeah, for my parents listening, because I'm sure they are, I'm sorry
It
about
never
that.
happened. No, we just made this up for the show.
It never happened. I was never on fire in the driveway next to my dad's Corvette.
It was a great fake story.
Yeah, exactly. But thanks for the warning of a bucket of water next to me because that saved me.
In theory.
In theory it did. It may have saved me. Yeah. So a funny thing happened to me the other day.
Do tell.
Yesterday, I'm at the optometrist, getting my eyes checked. And as you know, one of the things that I love to ask people is what their first car was. Me and my optometrist, we're not close.
No, not boys?
We're not homies.
No? Okay.
But he brought up, hey, aren't you into cars or something? And I was like, yeah, I'm kind of a car enthusiast a little bit.
Yeah.
And since he brought up the topic,
Yeah.
who am I to not ask him what his first car was?
Of course. That's,
right?
Yep.
So I was like, hey, since we're talking about cars here, as you're staring into my eyes lovingly, kind of an awkward experience, but what was your first car? And you know what he said?
I can't even guess.
A 1978 Pinto wagon with wood grain down the side.
No.
It is literally the most nerdy car that has ever been made. If you made a movie and you needed to come up with like, what is the really dorky guy gonna drive in high school? That is the car. It's like the pinnacle of dorkiness.
I need to see a picture of it, but
Oh my gosh. So we'll come up with one and we'll throw it up on the interwebs.
perfect.
So that our listeners can see.
Yeah. What was the Griswold family truckster? What was that?
I want to say that was like
That had wood grain.
Oh yeah, it was. I believe it was like a slightly customized 1970 maybe 5 Ford LTD wagon, or maybe like a Country Squire wagon. It was either a Ford or Mercury wagon. I'm going to guess a Ford LTD. I'm pretty sure that they intentionally made that car uglier than it really was, even though it was extremely ugly,
Yeah, that makes sense.
just for the movie to make it
Yeah.
even worse. And they did a hell of a job.
Oh, they did.
They added the second set of headlights to it, and they lowered the bumper and changed the grille. The making of the Griswold Truckster. Okay, so just so you know, the Wagon Queen family truckster in the National Lampoon's movie is a 79 Ford LTD Country Squire. So I got the
Yeah, you're right.
vehicle just the wrong year. I thought it was a little bit older. But yeah, 79 Ford LTD Country Squire wagon. But then they customized it to make it look even uglier than it was, which is hard to believe because
Yeah.
it is ugly.
It's very ugly.
Yeah, it's bad. Matt, do we have any emails from our listeners this week?
Yes. Real people are emailing in, Jeremy. It's great.
I'm excited to hear it.
Tony from Norwalk, Connecticut wants to know, do I need to have an oil change every 3,000 miles?
That's a good one, Matt, and it's probably the most debated topic in the automotive world, I would say. People are passionate about this, and I would say I'm probably one of them.
Passion.
Yeah. So I always change my oil probably between 3,000 and 4,000 miles, but I'm like crazy about
Yeah,
it.
you're kind of nuts.
Yeah. I worked at a dealership for a while, and I saw a lot of vehicles come into the dealership low on oil with major engine problems.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that if you ignore the oil for long enough, you're guaranteed to have engine problems. For the price of oil and a filter, I just change it every 3,000-ish, and I don't have those problems. So I always recommend 3,000 miles, but I know that if you buy a new car, I think even Porsche recommends like 10,000 mile oil changes. So you can go by what the dealer says. I personally don't, because I would rather have the extra insurance that my car is healthy and has fresh oil in it all the time. If you take it to a local oil change place, it'll probably cost $30 or $35 for an oil change. If you do it yourself, it's probably around $20 to $25. I just do it myself, but personally, I think it's worth it to bring it somewhere and have it done every 3,000 or 4,000 miles.
So do you need to change your oil filter every single time you get an oil change?
This is another one of those debated things where sometimes you can buy like the 10,000 mile oil, and then you can change your filter, halfway through that. The problem is that a lot of engines actually burn oil. So keeping the oil at the correct level is really important, and it can get out of whack, after 5,000 miles. You're probably going to be down some amount of oil, especially if you drive, Subarus or Cadillacs, not calling them out, but they just tend to drink oil. And that actually is normal for those cars. The dealerships even say, it burns X amount of oil over this amount of miles. For me, I would change the filter when I do the oil change itself at 3,000 or 4,000, but I have heard plenty of people say that they would change the filter halfway between like a 10,000 mile oil change. So they would do it at 5,000, and then at 10,000, they would do the oil. So I think it really depends who you're talking to. For me, it's every 3,000 or 4,000 miles, but I understand that others change it more often, and then they feel like their oil is still clean, which they're probably right. As long as it's oil in the engine, it's going to be happy.
Okay. Here's another one for you, Jeremy. Andrew's asking, It's super hot outside. I turn my AC on in the car, but only warm air blows out. Where do I even start to fix this? Can I do it myself? I've heard that I need special licenses and tools to fix AC.
I don't believe you need any special licenses, but you may need some special tools. Technically, you need a set of AC gauges, which will show you the low and high pressure of the AC system. You can actually get these at pretty much any local auto parts store. You can borrow them or you can buy a cheap set. But the first thing that I would check if the AC doesn't work is I would make sure that the compressor works. The AC compressor is what actually pumps the refrigerant around the AC system. So if that doesn't turn on, then you're gonna have no AC. And that won't turn on for a variety of reasons. It could eat itself internally, or it could just have no pressure in the system, and if it doesn't have pressure, then it won't run. Or the switch could be broken. There's like a million different reasons why the compressor won't turn on. So step one is making sure your AC compressor is actually turning on. Turn the AC on in the car and then jump the switch on the compressor. You can basically just run a wire from one side of the connector to the other and it will turn on the compressor. And if it does turn on the compressor, then you know your compressor is actually functioning and it may just be low on refrigerant or the switch might be bad, something like that. In which case, you know that the compressor works. Now you get a set of gauges from a local auto parts store or borrow them from a friend or whatever you want to do. Put it on the system and see if the refrigerant is actually low. If the refrigerant is low, you have a leak somewhere. AC systems are a closed system, so technically if it never leaks out, you can use this refrigerant for eternity.
Wow.
Pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
So it's not just that you need a recharge, it's that you need to figure out why the heck it leaked out. And that's sort of like the thing that I laugh about in the summertime when you drive by local auto repair place. It's like, hey, let us recharge your refrigerant. But in reality,
And
it's
you'll
not,
be back next summer.
Yeah, it's not going to do anything long term because it has leaked out in the first place. And if you don't fix the leak, then you're always going to be leaking refrigerant.
What do you think about those little cans?
They totally work. The catch is, if you don't fix the leak that caused the refrigerant to leave in the first place, you're just kind of throwing...
You might as well buy 100 cans and keep them with you.
You're kind of throwing your money out the window. I mean, It may work for a short period of time. It'll get you through a month until it leaks out again or whatever. It depends how big the hole is in the system. But you need to have full refrigerant in the system for it to work. And then once the full refrigerant is there, then the compressor will allow itself to turn on because it actually has a pressure switch inside the system. It's a variety of things that have to go perfect for the AC systems to work, and that's why they're so finicky. And in the summer, 50% of the ACs on the road just don't work because they're problematic. I mean, they were designed in like the 1930s or something like that, and they really haven't changed a whole lot since then. So yeah, it's an interesting question. It's a tough one to answer because there's just so many moving parts. But to diagnose it, I would just jump the compressor, see if that works, and it turns on your AC properly, then kind of go to the next thing and test your refrigerant levels. If the compressor doesn't turn on, then you know you got a bad compressor.
If you have any questions that you want to ask me or Jeremy, anything at all, send us an email at enginenoisepodcast@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Engine Noise, a podcast brought to you by 1AAuto.com, quality auto parts that ship free and have thousands of how-to videos that walk you through your installs. Thank you to our producer, Jamie Prohaska, our editor, Patty Ford, and our marketing team, Kristen Fitzpatrick and Christian Hera.
Yes, thank you, everyone. We'll have another great episode of Engine Noise drop in 2 weeks. Be sure to subscribe so that you'll be notified every time one of our awesome episodes drop. And remember to like, follow, and share our show on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, do it yourself.
Do it yourself.
That's what that means.
Go for a drive.
Get your pants on fire.
Don't get your pants on fire.
Get your hands filthy dirty.
Filthy.
Filthy.
Swap your engine out for an LS V8.
I promise it'll be worth it.
Do a burnout.
Lots of them.
Do a smoke show.
Donuts.
Eat a donut.
Ooh, I like donuts.
Turn the wrenches.
Do you have donuts?
I don't have donuts.
You said donuts. This show's over. I need to get donuts.
This Engine Noise podcast is brought to you by 1AAuto.com. Hit the subscribe button now and stay up to date with all the new episodes. Have a question for Jeremy or Matt? We'd love to hear from you. Send us an email at enginenoisepodcast@gmail.com.
I legit did start a Facebook page that was take the pretzels out of Party Mix.
Really?
Yeah. Never published it. It was a great idea, though.
Is this like Internet Bug Light?
Yeah, except Internet Bug Light actually did stuff.
Yeah.
But
Was a major internet smash.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know it.
I still think it's a great idea, though.
One of these days it'll come back.